Folks, it is a football Monday. That is right. That is right. That's it. That's it. Pete Sousa here. We got Mike Hamilton producing today, which means we brought out the big guns for a big day. We're going to recap, obviously, the Baylor game, obviously, some Cowboys. I'm going to tell you why the Raiders and their fans should be rooting for this team to just absolutely bottom out. Some interesting media stories, and then we got Cam Stewart coming up in the last segment. But we'll start by thanking Slovakics, because this morning I stopped by. Ray wasn't there, by the way. And don't think just because they're a huge sponsor, right? You see him on the upper left-hand side of the screen, that we get stuff for free all the time. I paid for the kolaches. Ray was not there. And I wasn't looking for a free meal or a free ticket anyways. But I was able to soak up the atmosphere and the celebration in Slovakics. We are now on November 4th. November 4th now. So the Christmas shop is alive and kicking. It is, Mike. What are you laughing at?
No, that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting to hear all about the Christmas stuff.
The Christmas shop is
they have a whole separate Christmas shop.
It's wild.
It's gigantic.
So it's booming over there, okay? And everybody's so nice. And I told people, hey, I was there for Ray. But look, I was actually there for the kolaches. That was number one thing. I brought them back here. When you walk into a room full of people and you bring them kolaches from Slovakics, you instantly become the most popular person in said room. And I was that today.
Especially with the sausage ones. Yeah.
There you go.
Loose meat, though. Next time, try the loose meat.
All right.
Ground up meat.
I'm in.
Well, see, I used to teach in West. And so that's where I went all the time. Like, you'd go get a sandwich. You'd go get some, whatever.
There's nothing better.
No. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So
good coffee, too.
Great coffee. The whole deal. So thanks to I got a blueberry muffin as well, but okay, enough of that already. But thanks to Slovakics, and of course the rest of our sponsors. Gordon Harriman's in here somewhere. Is he still taping?
I know that he was in here at 12, so quite possibly he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there. Him and Brad Wesley.
Yep.
No, it's Wesley.
Telling all their secrets.
Brad Wesley's a character from Roadhouse.
Oh, fantastic! I don't know about Brad Wesley.
But yeah, Gordon.
New Roadhouse or Old Roadhouse?
I'm an old,
Texas
old
Roadhouse.
And first of all, I like Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ray, that's where he and his wife like to go.
Really?
Days. Yeah.
Do you think it's the same since they stopped putting the peanuts on the floor?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is. It's just you don't slip and fall.
Peanut allergy.
Yeah. But no, the original Roadhouse, there was a guy, Brad Wesley was bad news. Yeah, we're on to Roadhouse now. Let's get on to the Texas-Dallas Cowboys. Forget about Texas Roadhouse. The Cowboys lost yesterday to the Atlanta Falcons. By the way, Falcons are good this year. The game was competitive. It was a pretty fun first half. I listened to Babe Laufenberg and Brad Sham throughout the first half and into the second half. I was driving yesterday. And first of all, those guys do a wonderful job of kind of bringing you to the emotion that Cowboys fans are feeling right now and the disappointment. And I'm going to stop short of desperation, but because those guys aren't desperate fans per se, but they're disappointed. And you can tell that there's not apathy there. There's never apathy when you talk about the Cowboys, but there is great disappointment and great pain for Cowboys fans. And we are at the jumping off point for the Cowboys this season. And here's what I mean by that is it almost might be time to just wrap your arms around this and just lower your expectations if you're a Cowboys fan and get better in the offseason. Hope and pray that, Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones do that. You're going to get a new coach. There's going to be a lot. There should be a real shot in the arm provided in the offseason. And the reason I bring all this up now is because the trade deadline is tomorrow in the NFL. And I don't think any Cowboys fan is sitting at home right now or driving in the car or wherever you are thinking, oh, okay, like this is a way that we will get better, is through going ahead and making a trade over the course of the deadline. Like we need to make a trade and that's going to change things. Like nobody in their right mind thinks that. Like this is a Cowboys team that like if you want to look at it here's I'll make it simple. The Cowboys need help at running back, offensive line, and wide receiver. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball. And there's no trade out there that will fix this. There is no quick fix for this problem. And you can compare the way this organization runs now to the way it used to run when they won Super Bowls, 3 of them, basically all thanks to Jimmy Johnson. You could say Barry Switzer came in and took care of the last one, but those titles were built slowly, right? It was, you talk about a team getting very close and a team bonding, like after you suck so bad, like the Cowboys did in 88 and 89, it's like you're getting off a shipwreck, right? And your team becomes super close. And through all this, you're building your team. Now we talk about in-season trades, okay, in the NFL. Like, what are you really going to get on an in-season trade? And we're going to do two things here. One, I think the best in-season trade I saw was Randy Moss to the Patriots in 2007. Most in-season trades, it's not impactful right away, and it's desperate. You know, Carson Palmer to the Raiders, Eric Dickerson to the Colts. There's all kinds of in-season trades that like were exciting for a minute, but they never like you never seen an in-season trade like make a team head to a Super Bowl. It's never happened. And then I guess Amari Cooper was the most recent Cowboys in-season trade that really did have a positive effect for the Cowboys. Now, you want to talk about an in-season trade that actually worked? Well, let's go back, right? We talk about no quick fix. The Cowboys and the Herschel Walker trade. Like, you look at where the Cowboys are right now and how dysfunctional the organization is, how there is a lack of talent and skill that needs to be on the field. Yeah, they got a lot of guys hurt right now, but when those guys were healthy, it's not like, you know, they were knocking the cover off the ball. And if you're a good football team like the Lions, who lost their best defensive player, by far, probably the best defensive player, Aiden Hutchinson, in the league, and their other best defensive player got kicked out of the game in the first half yesterday against the Packers, and they still beat them like they stole something from them. Like, that is a team that if you're a good football team, you can handle certain injuries and find a way to get a patchwork operation that'll, you know, at the very least, like split you a couple games while they're out. And if you're very good, like the Lions, maybe not even lose a step, right? But so in 1989, in the middle of the season, the Dallas Cowboys, it was actually in October. The Cowboys were terrible. And the only player they had on their team that was worth a damn was Herschel Walker. And there was a trade proposal, right? And the trade was the Cowboys would send Herschel Walker and 3 draft picks to Minnesota. In exchange, the Cowboys would get from the Vikings 5 players, 3 draft picks, and conditional picks attached to each of those 5 players should they be cut by Dallas before February 1st, 1990. So here's the big part, right? They got 5 players from the Vikings. Now, those 5 players, if they were cut, would turn into draft picks. This is like a huge gaffe, by the way, for the Minnesota Vikings and their front office, and goes back to how shrewd Jimmy Johnson was to get a deal like this done. Okay, the Vikings' biggest mistake, right, was assuming that the Cowboys were going to keep these 5 players that they traded for because the Cowboys needed help so badly in so many different areas. That's not what they did. The Cowboys cut all of those picks before February 1st, or all of those players before February 1st, 1990. And so that turned them into draft picks. Okay, so they had the worst team in the league. They were gifted these 5 guys who, by the way, it was like Darren Nelson, another guy, Jesse something, a bunch of guys who weren't like jumping off the page at you. It's not like they got Joey Browner from the Vikings, who was like one of their best defensive players. Jesse Solomon was a guy who was a linebacker, but Cowboys didn't use any of them. They turned them all into draft picks. Okay, so those draft picks, well, they ended up being Darren Woodson, Kevin Smith, Clayton Holmes, who wasn't very good, Russell Martin, and Emmitt Smith. And they also won 3 Super Bowls. So on this eve of the trade deadline, we sit here and we talk about, what can the Cowboys do to put like the plug in the jug, right? And that's kind of what it is right now. Like, there's nothing that'll turn this team around and make them a Super Bowl contender, maybe even at this point a playoff contender. And if there is a player out there on another team, like let's say you want to trade for Nick Chubb. Well, Nick Chubb's been hurt for majority of the season, right? So you can maybe give him a pass on that. But the Browns kind of suck. So like that's actually a bad example because Chubb's been hurt, and so that's not fair. But most of the other players out there in the league that you would want, they're on bad teams. And, those teams are bad for a reason. It's not like that one player can write everything in that team for that team, and certainly not for the Cowboys. So that is just it's quite the 180, right? From where the Cowboys were with a building mindset on their way to 3 Super Bowls to where the Cowboys are right now right now, what can we do to make a splash? They had the offseason for that and they passed on it. And they picked up Zeke Elliott, who, by the way, didn't even go with the team to Atlanta because he's missed so many meetings. This is reportedly from people who are close to the source. He's been missing meetings. He's just not happy with the Cowboys, and they're really not happy with him. And apparently both sides were like, hey, why don't you just stay home for this trip? And as Brad Sham said at the end of that broadcast against the Falcons yesterday, Cowboys-Falcons, he and Babe Laufenberg were talking about Zeke not being there. And Brad said, well, unfortunately for Zeke, that's the least of the Cowboys' worries right now. Like, think about that. Someone who they could have gotten in the offseason, of course, it's been talked about, right, over and over again to the point where we're sick. But Derrick Henry. And you can say, hey, running backs don't matter, right? Like, that's what people you think in the offseason, like, you don't have a running back who can play well. It doesn't matter. Like, no, the running back that you signed can't play well. Zeke, he's done. Derrick Henry is a guy who's obviously taken incredible care of his body. He's already at 1,000 yards, I think. Mike, did you want to say something about Derrick Henry?
No, as a ex-Titans fan,
yeah,
as of this season, I think it was a stupid move. You should have moved on him, and you probably should have moved on T. Higgins or somebody like that.
Yeah,
because that's your 1-2 punch. Then you free up CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you've got something at that point. The thing that confused me the most yesterday is when they started talking about, well, no, I guess this was Mosley last night talking about this. He said that, when you go to a game plan where your quarterback has to get rid of the ball as fast as possible, you got problems.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. By the way, so Mosley and Ed Werder, Doomsday Podcast.
Did you see Mosley's tweet yesterday?
What did he say?
Right at the end of the game, he tweeted out and said, Cowboys fans want Mike McCarthy to get jury duty. Like the kicker. I thought that was really good, though. What
about the show yesterday?
It was good. It just
the Doomsday Podcast, which is taped right after Cowboys games and goes up on the Rogue Media Network. It's a huge show.
Taped at my house.
Yeah.
But Ed was obviously not happy.
How pissed was Ed?
Ed was pretty pissed, but Ed
Ed to the point now, because you get body language.
Yeah.
You get Ed offline, and we're not asking for anything crazy like insightful going on in Ed's life.
He wears pants every time.
But he's frustrated with his team, right?
You can see how he has just decided, okay, this is just the way it is, and he's kind of resigned himself to this team is just not good.
Yeah,
I feel bad for Cowboys fans only because my wife is a Cowboys fan. And so it's tough to watch her watch this team that's had so much success in the past and is such a held on a pedestal, amongst all these other teams. And I've said it over and over. You got to stop being okay as a team. Otherwise, you're never going to get any better.
Yeah.
There's got to be a couple years where you just give it up.
So then that's exactly what we're talking about. Thank you very much, Mike Hamilton. And, another thread that has woven through all of pop culture and social media is, and I want you to, Mike, cue this up. This is yesterday. There's no sound of this. You don't need it. But this is yesterday from the broadcast. Go ahead, Mike. Lips there. Can you play it again, Mike? One more time, Mike. You can't read the lips. We effing suck.
That's not hard to read.
No, it's not hard to read. Now, there were 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the game was pretty much out of reach. The Cowboys had an opportunity to get a last-ditch, like, Hail Mary going. Cooper Rush was in the game for Dak, and they scored a touchdown. They tried the onside kick down by 1 score, didn't get it. Game was over. And look, that frustration is legitimate, okay? And I am always a student. I guess I always believe in that stuff's going to look way worse than it actually is, right? Like an argument on the sidelines between a player and a coach, an argument on the sidelines between a quarterback and a wide receiver, reading lips, right? Like we just did there. Here, the problem is we've seen so much of it with the Cowboys this year. There has been so much focus on the dysfunction that it is like there's so much smoke here that it's bad. I mean, it's real bad. It always reminds me of when the Eagles, right before Ray Rhodes got fired, they were just getting killed. They lost to the 49ers on Monday Night Football. There were people running all over the field. It was at Vet Stadium. People were getting arrested. That's when they had the judge in the basement of the Vet where people could get processed quicker. And Ray Rhodes just met with the media afterwards, and he just said, "It's bad, man. It's real bad." And that's like where we're at with the Cowboys. It's really, really bad. And the last note I'll say about the Cowboys from a philosophical standpoint is, and yesterday, you see on the sidelines from Dak. That's again, I don't hold that against Dak. Like, I still believe these guys are going through crazy emotional stuff. And you're going to see people say things, do things on the sidelines that are just, they shock you, and it's not necessarily, a tea party on the sidelines, right? It gets pretty rough. And I believe, though, the stuff off the field, like the quotes in locker rooms, the Trayvon Diggs coming out of the locker room challenging Mike Leslie last week. Like some of the quotes where Dak is saying that they need to practice harder. There's just like so much, guys who are literally not playing, like Micah Parsons, opening their mouths and providing locker room fodder for other teams. And that's the opposite of how you win a championship. Like, if you think about the New England Patriots under Bill Belichick, if you talk to anybody around that team that covered that team, it's the most boring team to cover ever, even when they weren't doing great, because the culture there and the understanding there is like, this is how you win. Like, you don't give anybody any ammunition that they could use against us or that we can use against each other, right? Like, if we have issues, we keep it in-house, and that's how we work on things. But the number one goal is winning a Super Bowl. And part of that decorum is you don't give people quotes where they can hurt your team. Like, it's fun for us. I love it. But that's just not how you win a Super Bowl. Mike Hamilton, what's up?
So I'm a little older than you. I lived through the Cowboys my entire life. And one thing you could not say about the Cowboys is they were ever out of control. I don't remember a time when the Cowboys were literally out of control. Now, maybe you're talking 70s or something.
Well, I mean, the behavior
and all that stuff.
was.
Yeah, but this is an organization that is spiraling.
Yeah.
And as a Oilers/Titans fan, I can identify that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
When those guys come out and say those kind of things, there is nobody watching the henhouse. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And that is a scary prospect.
Yeah.
You say boring. Now, I lived through 22 years of my Spurs being boring, but that was a good thing because you didn't have problems.
That's a basketball example of what we're talking about here. Like the way that all the Spurs handled themselves, and they didn't necessarily hate the media, but they certainly didn't love them, and they knew that had nothing to do with winning a championship, right? Like you take care of your obligations with that, and then you move on.
My biggest issue with that is, everybody's talking Belichick. Oh. Belichick won't fix all of this unless he's given the reins to do it. That's the problem.
Well, we're going to be talking Bill Belichick and more next segment. Why we're going to be talking about Bill Belichick, this is important now. You have to stick around to find out. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, rolls on after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
Pete Sousa Show from the Alico Building. Brought to you by Slovacics. Brought to you by Crawford Austin Properties. By the way, again, Gordon was in here earlier. Gordon Harriman. What's that show called?
Facing the Mirror.
It's called Face in the Mirror. It's me and Wesley.
He's a good guy.
Gordon is the best guy.
Both of them. Good guys.
I know Wesley kinda. I know Gordon is like, there's nothing better than Gordon Harriman. So Facing the Mirror, check out that podcast. It's very, very, it's a way for you to get better. And
it's basically a therapy session between the two.
Yeah.
That he sends out to everybody in the world, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are they doing?
They're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know numbers.
Okay.
I haven't really looked. I don't look until you're probably 20, 30 episodes in.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter until then.
Mike.
I'm just saying it doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, you got to build is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. You got to build your show.
Speaking of which, the payoff, Mike Hamilton is going to join me tomorrow. We're recording an episode. When we started the payoff with Pete, Stories of Sobriety, Mike was not sober. Mike is now
not
sober.
In any way.
Mike is now sober for how many years? 3?
This is 3 years this month. Yeah.
3 years this month. So we're going to get that whole story out of Mike and make sure you listen to that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a big draw.
So couple things I wanted to mention. I talked about Bill Belichick, and I'm starting to now look into the future, as we all are, because now we're at a time where, a lot of these teams are 9 games in, these teams in the NFL. And the Saints just fired their coach today because they had lost 7 straight. In fact, let's take a look here. Okay. So the Patriots are 2-7, but they're obviously out of the Belichick sweepstakes, right? Let's see. The Browns are 2-7, but their coach is actually pretty good, Stefanski. They're not going to fire him. The Jaguars, they'll probably fire Doug Peterson. They're 2-7. Let's see. Check out the NFC. The Giants are 2-7. They could fire Brian Daboll, and that would be so crazy if Belichick went there. But I don't have enough. I'm not close enough to that situation to know. Panthers, they could fire their coach, but he's brand new. So we just mentioned the Saints. I believe that there's potential for Belichick to go a few places. One of the places I think would be really attractive for him and attractive for us as fans, and certainly attractive for folks out in Vegas, would be the Raiders. And the Raiders are 2-7. I left them off when I was reading about teams that suck because I wanted to kind of make this point. So Antonio Pierce is their head coach. He was an interim last year. He kind of got that interim pop that interim coaches get. He's a player's coach and he's fiery, and he got the job done towards the end of last year. And then you evaluate that job over the offseason and you get a lot of push from players in the organization and people who love Antonio Pierce because he's extremely likable and by all accounts was a great positional coach. But this is a different ballgame being a head coach. And it's not to say he won't be at his next turn. And it's not to say the Raiders won't keep him and he'll turn shit around. But the way it looks right now is not going in the right direction. And if the Raiders continue to lose and spiral, and I looked at their schedule, there's probably, like, really, when you break it down, there's probably like 2 more games that they probably will win. So now what are you then? You're 4-15, or no, you're 4-13. So that's fireable. And especially when somebody who's part ownership in your group is Tom Brady, who, as we talked about here weeks ago on this show, people inside the Patriots organization have talked to folks outside of it, and the folks outside have conveyed the message that Tom Brady, people inside the Patriots organization who know Brady well have said one of his first priorities is to get Bill Belichick in there as the head coach for the Raiders. And boy, it would seem like the window is opening. Okay. Another reason why, if you're a Raiders fan, you are pulling for the Raiders to continue to suck right now. Shedeur Sanders, 2 words, Shedeur Sanders. And he will be, at this point in time, it looks like the first quarterback taken. Well, Dylan Gabriel, maybe. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. I want to see some of these. I haven't talked to my boy McShay in a while. So we're going to go number 1. Number 1 is Shedeur Sanders. I'm looking at some of these lists right now. Number 2 is Cam Ward. Then you got, you're going down now. You got Gabriel and Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, but he is hands down the number 1 quarterback prospect. Mike, you're leaning over.
Well, no, I'm just saying I hadn't thought about the Brady Belichick.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's amazing.
It's very real.
Yeah, and if Dallas misses out on that,
Cameron and I have talked about that. Cameron Stewart, and we have mentioned that Brady had said one of his first articles of business would be getting Brady or getting Belichick at that pick. So now you got the Raiders and your fan base. You should be rooting for them to lose, like if you were cheering for your NBA team to get the best opportunity in the lottery to get Patrick Ewing. Like, you have 2 opportunities in the offseason that could come out of you sucking as bad as you can for the rest of this year. I know it's hard, right? I know it's difficult, but Raiders fans, remember, if you continue to let that bottom drop out, right, you could get Shedeur Sanders and Bill Belichick in one fell swoop. 2 generational opportunities, a generational coach and who could be a generational player. And here is the Shedeur Sanders case that I continue to make and will until the day I'm no longer here, or he retires, or is a complete bust. But let me keep going with this. He has got the mentality of a winning quarterback. If you watch him play this year, he'll never have a worse offensive line in the NFL than he does now. If he does, I would be shocked. And the way that he handles himself with that team as a leader, his attitude, all that matters is winning, right? He's been around it. You know, we talk about guys like Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes. There's a couple others that are slipping my mind. Oh, Barry Bonds. Some of these incredible players are put in even a better position to be superstars because of their access to the game, because of their parents. The lights just aren't quite as bright if you've been hanging out at the ballpark since you were a little kid, or the football stadium, or the basketball arena. And I think that that's an opportunity that Shedeur Sanders can seize. Again, Raiders fans, I love you. I wear the gear. I've worn it since Al Davis and NWA were at the forefront of my life. That was my childhood. It was pretty wild. And when you talk about those two things and the Raiders apparel, I love to wear because I love the autumn wind, and I've been over that a million times. So I love the Raiders and Raiders fans, but you guys should really want to suck for the rest of the year. Okay. You got Bill Belichick, you got Shedeur Sanders just hanging out there. They could completely revitalize your entire organization. And oh, by the way, it's a sleeping giant because of where you are and that beautiful stadium. So, like, there's a big, you guys got your asses kicked by the Bengals yesterday. Okay. You fired your offensive coordinator. Okay. Like, it's all really moving in the right direction, whether you care to believe it or not. And that could be something. Mike, was that your phone? I thought you broke wind. That could be something that everybody takes advantage of and really enjoys. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about this morning, and we haven't even gotten to Baylor. That's what Cam Stewart's for. I'm a Sixers fan, okay? I did public relations for the Sixers. Not for very long because I was very screwed up on alcohol and drugs, but I did. I had a cup of coffee, as you would say, 2-3 years doing PR for the Sixers. And during that time, I got to be close. One of the things about my job doing PR was that I got to be, especially in Philly, that I got to be around heroes of mine. And I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about sports writers. Phil Jasner, particularly, one of the greatest basketball writers of all time, died of colon cancer in 2010. But I was able to talk to Phil about all this stuff that had gone on with the Sixers, past and present, right? And I had read him since I was a little kid. And there were other columnists who I got to know. One of those was Marcus Hayes. Marcus Hayes has been was a beat writer for a while for the Philadelphia Daily News, and now is a columnist. And Marcus Hayes, he's a great writer. The reason he's been a columnist in Philly for as long as he has been is because he's compelling. He does a good job of holding a lot of these people accountable. But unfortunately for Marcus Hayes and media members all over the country, he missed the mark on this story about Joel Embiid. Marcus Hayes first of all, Joel Embiid has not been playing because he's been injured. And that bleeds into my disdain for the Sixers organization right now, that guys are constantly not playing. When they are playing, they play like shit. I'm still way too close to the fire with the Ben Simmons and all of that. It's just I kind of need a break from the Sixers. All right. Just as a fan, because I am one of the ultimate diehard fans for the Sixers. And Embiid, I love him, but he's always hurt. And I'm sorry, that becomes an issue. And I'm not saying Joel Embiid's not the greatest guy in the world. I'm not saying that he's played through pain. I'm not saying that he's faking injuries or being a wimp. No, I'm just saying that Joel Embiid, when it all comes down to it, has not come through yet. So he doesn't get a pass on any of this stuff. So the fact that Marcus Hayes is calling Joel Embiid out for being out of shape is completely within his right. But when you say, Joel Embiid had a brother who died in a tragic accident, and Joel Embiid has been talking about dedicating his basketball career to his brother who died in an accident. Well, Marcus Hayes says, well, to be great at your career, you actually have to show up to work. And he put all that in together. He put the part about Joel's brother first. Basically was you want to make your dead brother proud, get in shape, which is wow. So you kind of get inside baseball on the journalist side. Joel Embiid at a practice or shoot around, I guess, last week, was kind of like, hey, has anybody seen like Marcus Hayes? Because Marcus had been ripping him, you know? And everybody's like, no, Marcus isn't here. So now if you're Marcus Hayes, as a sports writer, word gets back to you like, yo, like Joel like has been asking, was asking for you. So I don't care what Marcus Hayes tells anybody else. Like now he's like, okay, I actually have to go to the Sixers locker room after a game here soon and just be there for Joel Embiid to talk to. Like that's the journalist way. Jeff Pearlman has been on this podcast explaining it to us that's what he had to do after he wrote a Sports Illustrated article on John Rocker that painted Rocker as a racist, rightly or wrongly. That's up to you. But Pearlman said that was that was the story, you know, and I don't doubt that he was using all the journalistic integrity. What is that? Integrity in the world. Sorry, guys. But the next day or the next time the Yankees or the Mets were playing the Braves, maybe it was the next season, Pearlman knew he had to go into that Braves locker room and deal with John Rocker, who apparently almost wanted to kick his ass. So Marcus Hayes has to do the same thing on Saturday night after the Sixers lose to the Grizzlies. He's in the locker room, and Joel Embiid marches right up to him, and there begins a heated conversation that goes on for like, I think like 5 minutes. Somebody said like the real time on it. It was long, right? And it ended with Joel Embiid shoving Marcus Hayes. So, and this is where I get into like I get to judge because this is what I'm doing here. Like, okay, he didn't punch him. So, and he shoved him. Like, that's really not that bad. You know, and so did Marcus Hayes deserve physical contact? Absolutely not. But it happened. And it was a consequence of writing a story that went over the line. You know, the best sports writers in the world, you can basically say, and that's what Joel Embiid had said to Marcus Hayes, like, say I suck at basketball, dude. Like, that's what was overheard, according to the sources that were close to that conversation, because it was out in the open, right? It was in the locker room. But it's like, you can say I suck. You can say I'm out of shape. You can say all this stuff about me. Don't ever talk about my dead brother and my family. And he's right. Like, he is. I can line him up from Tony Kornheiser to Bob Ryan to Phil Jasner to Stephen A. Smith. Great columnists over the years. I think to a man, they would all say Marcus Hayes went over the line there. And that's what you get when you go over the line. Like, we saw what happened to Mike Leslie last week, right? He didn't even do anything wrong. And a guy came out of the locker room. And by the way, I don't want to hear anybody for 1 minute say, oh, this is today's player. It's not today's player, dude. We just have more access. It was the same shit going on 20, 30 years ago. In fact, 50 years ago, women were coming into the locker room and being shamed for being there and getting run the hell out. Like, trust me, dude, it's gotten better. But we just see so much more now. There's so much more access that it's all there for us to see. But I really get I get very interested when stuff like this happens because, one, I was almost weirdly happy that it happened to a traditional sports writer both times recently. Marcus Hayes with the Philadelphia Daily News and a traditional sports reporter, Mike Leslie at WFAA. I was kind of like, oh, it's not. And right, look at me. I'm on a media network with a YouTube show that you can get on Spotify and Apple. But I like the traditional journalists, okay? What can I say? I still want to be able to read the newspaper. I still want to see Mike Leslie talking about the Cowboys locally. So yeah, that's there's some other stuff I'm not going to get to today. I'll have to do it tomorrow because I really want to talk to Cam about Baylor, which is coming right up after these messages, these words.
Hey, can I break in real quick?
Yeah.
Scotty, everything's good. Just wanted to give him a heads up and I know that nobody out there knows, but Scotty had a little health thing with his daughter. Everything's good, though.
Okay.
He just texted us, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Just in case he's listening, want to let him know that our thoughts are with him.
Yeah, well, then that is serious. But on that note, Cam, you go, yeah, our producer, Aaron Sexton, has had his struggles. but he's battled back. All right, we'll be right back after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserving, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
Cam, what happened to Braden during the break? If you were watching our commercials, Braden he's featured prominently on Cam's promo. We're going to bring Cam up here in a little bit. Here in a little, right, Mike? We got to make some changes before. I'm still cooling off, by the way, after my Marcus Hayes segment. I'll tell a good story for you while we're waiting. Okay. I mentioned Phil Jasner being a legendary columnist and beat writer for the Philadelphia 76ers. So Phil burned me once, and this is the first time I've ever shared this story publicly. But he was Phil Jasner, so he had the right to burn me. I was a PR guy for the Sixers. I had obviously you don't know this. I had worked for the Charlotte Hornets in public relations. Now, Larry Brown was in the Philadelphia 76ers front office. And so we had all the most recent documents for Larry Brown, whatever, bios. So my old boss at the Hornets sends me a message. It's April of 2009 or 8, probably. I think 2008. And the Sixers were in the playoffs. And so I'm getting ready for a playoff game. I get a message from my old boss. Can you send me Larry Brown's bio? Right away, I'm like, holy shit. The Hornets are Bobcats at the time. They're going to hire Larry Brown. And then it's confirmed from said boss, wow. The Bobcats are going to hire Larry Brown, who's now in the Sixers front office. Nobody in the Sixers front office cares, right? Larry was probably more of a pain in the ass in that I guess he was a consultant to Billy King, the GM. He would just walk in the office and be like, Michael Beasley is the best player I think I've ever seen in my life. He just couldn't. He wouldn't stop talking about all these players he would scout. He'd fall in love with them. So anyways, Larry Brown's going to be the Bobcats' next coach. Nobody knows. I'm in the media room. I see Phil Jasner. This is before a game. I tell Phil, dude, off the record, I got to tell you something. The Bobcats are going to hire Larry Brown. And Phil does one of these. He goes, wow, that's interesting. The kid's got something I'm interested in. So I'm like, off the record, Phil. Then the next day, we got another playoff game. Okay. Getting ready. There's an article in the Charlotte Observer by, God rest his soul, Rick Bonnell, talking about how he's heard from sources that the Bobcats are hiring Larry Brown. I'm like, I start getting calls from my ex-boss. Yo, WTF, dude. I'm going to kill you. You told someone about this? I'm literally shitting bricks. And I go into the media room. I can barely see straight. And there's Phil again. And I say, Phil, dude, what the F? And he looks at me and he says, Pete, Rick needed the story. He's going through a divorce. Times are tough. I had to do it. And that was it. It was like, yeah, sorry, pal. In this case, I did the old risk reward. Like, sorry. So with that, let's bring in Cameron Stewart. Cam?
Yes. By the way, I know you said off the record, but that's too good a story. I don't want to, I still don't agree with what he did, but that's too good a story.
So you side with Phil?
I guess no. I mean, not really. No, what he did was still wrong. If you say off the record, that is not supposed to be repeated to anybody. That's different from not for attribution, which I think a lot of people think is off the record. So no, but I don't know, man. It's like telling your secret to that one friend who you know it's not going to stick with him. Like I had a good friend growing up who just could not keep secrets, didn't want to, and I was like really close with him. And I knew that if I told him something, it was not going to be kept to just him. No matter how much I told him, dude, do not tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. It wasn't going to happen. So it's kind of like that. So, I mean, no, I'm still on your side. When you say off the record, it's off the record. But it's too juicy.
There was a really good story. And so what happened was, well, I didn't even want to get into the fallout because it actually isn't good. But I was okay. That makes anybody feel better. I would eventually
makes me feel better.
I would eventually work long and hard at completely sinking my own ship, but that had nothing to do with that. All right, so Cam, let's talk about it, dude. First of all, I'm starting to get pissed because now I'm seeing people write articles like, "Oh, like Baylor can win out. Oh, it's not off the table that Baylor can." It's like, yo, I said that 3 weeks ago. Okay, like, just so you know,
not everyone's inside the 12, Pete.
I just know. And you've helped me. Here's one big thing that I don't think people saw coming for this Baylor situation, because Baylor did a shit job of kind of telling us what. Well, I shouldn't say that. This isn't on Baylor. I take that back. But somebody, and I don't know who, didn't do a good enough job of letting everyone know how big a deal it was that some of their best players were hurt earlier in the season or hurt or out because we didn't know why they were out. And we're not here to litigate why they were out, right? But there were a lot of very good players, Cam, who did not play in multiple games.
Right.
And those games were games that Baylor
against
lost.
Big teams.
Pardon me?
Against really good teams, too.
And Baylor lost those games, a couple of them by an eyelash.
Mm-hmm. So
now this is a team operating at full strength with a quarterback who is wow, right?
Wow.
What did you see from – because I haven't talked to you about this game, and I've done it on purpose. What did you see from Sawyer Robertson on Saturday night?
Sawyer was fine. Good. First half, they weren't moving the ball in the passing game very well. In fact, it's one of the only stretches that I've seen since he's taken over as the starter where I don't want to say he was really bad or anything. They weren't moving the ball in the passing game. But, I mean, the story was the ground game. Bryson Washington, 4 touchdowns, 200 yards on the ground. And that has been a huge turnaround in this Baylor 3-game winning streak, is the fact they've been able to run the ball effectively. They have faced 3 teams who are in the bottom 6 or 8 in rush defense in the entire conference. So that's really helped them.
Throwing water on it.
That's really helped them. That's all I'm saying. And, yeah, some people are like, oh, they played teams that stunk. It's like, well, no, you played a Tech team that was at the top of the conference when you
just
played
beat
them.
Iowa State.
And just beat Iowa State. You played them on the road. Oklahoma State, yeah, they're not that good. No, but I think you had the point, proud program, they're not just going to lay over, and they didn't. In TCU, that's a good football team. It's not a very good football team, but it's a good football team. And they came in here, they had a good game plan. They don't have any running game at all, and they're soft against the run, and Baylor exploited that. So it's not a bad thing that they exploited it, but I do think that's an interesting thing to look at, especially after the bye week. They play West Virginia, which is the 4th best rush defense in the Big 12. So I just wonder.
They have a defensive coordinator too.
Yeah. And I just wonder, because Baylor's offense is still good without that. Because even when they weren't running the ball well, they scored 38 at Colorado. They scored 28 against BYU after spotting them a 14-point lead. I just think that helps them pick apart everything when they can establish the run. But Sawyer was putting up some pretty good numbers and keeping them in games when it had to be just him earlier in the earlier part of the season too.
What did you think about some of the play calls down the stretch? It was interesting. I thought they took the keys away from Sawyer Robertson
in the final drive.
Yeah, well, they were running the ball a lot. I was like, wow, this is interesting. I thought, what did you make of that? I guess because honestly, and this is why these guys are coaches, and I'm not. I mean, the movement they were getting up front was pretty wild.
Yes, yeah, I'm okay with that. I was more worried about their clock management on that final drive.
Yeah.
They get the ball with 1:55 left. They've made one first down and there's 35 seconds left. Like you had all your timeouts. You can't be taking a minute 20 to run 4 plays. Like, that's just not wise. Even only needing any score.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they needed a touchdown, so I'll give them that. But and quite frankly, Pete, I thought the 4th down call was stupid. I thought it was bad.
I like people with stick.
And if they missed it, we would be killing Dave Aranda for this.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
But they made it.
But they made it. And it goes from stupid to ballsy.
Yeah.
And
That's
Dave they dragging those balls on the turf, man. I mean, that was so it was after that pass interference call that they picked up the flag. So the flag would have put them from the 44 to the 29. And I was thinking it's 3rd down. I look up. Actually, Mosley's telling me, he's like, they're not going to play this, right? They're not going to snap. It's 4th down.
Do you sit next to Mosley during the game?
Yeah, he's got the seat next to me.
Stop it.
Okay.
That's awesome. Do you guys
he leaves for like half the game.
Because he wants to talk to other people.
Yeah.
But he's there like, you guys, that's awesome.
Suites. Yeah. We're in the same publication. Anyway.
That's awesome.
And I'm looking up. It's 4th and 9. And there's 20 or I think 16 seconds left. TCU's got 2 timeouts as Baylor goes to the line. I'm like, oh my God, like if they don't get this, TCU's 1 play from winning this thing.
Yeah.
Like they can run a play, call a timeout, kick a field goal. It's like 2022 all over again. And then TCU calls the timeout as Baylor's lining up. And I'm like, oh, okay, now they were just going to try and draw them off sides, maybe get them a little closer. You know, it's not going to happen now. And then they ran out and put in the same formation, like the same motion, same guy. They empty the backfield and they run the play to Trigg, which gets them to the 29, which is exactly where the pass interference call would have gotten them. And then they run it for 13. That's what people forget.
Crazy.
They then run the ball.
Yes.
Bryson Washington will not go down. And I'm like, go down, go down.
Yeah.
5 seconds left. They're at the 16. And at that point, the game's over.
Yeah.
And so really, Pete, I put out on Locked On Baylor that Dave Aranda outcoached Sonny Dykes in this game. And it was not a full game thing. It was 2 plays. Because, you know, the coordinators call the plays, but the head coaches decide whether you go for it on 4th down. And with 10 minutes left, TCU had a 4th and 2 from Baylor's 46-yard line. They had scored on 4 straight drives. They would score on their only drive after that, and they punted. They punted on 4th and 2 from the plus 46. Dave Aranda goes for it on 4th and 9 from the plus 44.
I was shocked.
It favors the bold, man.
That is, yep. And I was shocked when they didn't go for it. And really,
even without a running game, I was like, they haven't covered you all night.
Yeah.
Why? It was mind-boggling to me. They did not go for it on 4th and 2.
I love
in a tie game
what's going on with Michael Trigg too. I mean, he is a matchup nightmare. And it was like, that was a guy who I was thinking to myself, they really would be better served to go to Trigg on this play than anybody else because he'll get open. Like who's going to cover him? And that's what happened. I couldn't believe it.
And look, I don't, you know, as I mature and get years and years away from college, I don't really like slamming individual players too much, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are still kids, right?
Yeah.
But it did feel good that Michael Trigg makes arguably the biggest catch of the game as your new starting tight end when your starting tight end for the last 3 years transferred to TCU and has made no impact there. The rivalry in me.
Why did Dabney leave? Do you know? We're talking about Drake Dabney. Is there
new OC? You know, I think there's a lot of like these guys who would go in as grad transfers, and with the COVID year, you know, they might have a year or 2, but I think there's just something to these guys being like, all right, I've done my 4 years here. I've got my degree. let's see if I can get a good situation here for the final year. I think
he was on that Sugar Bowl team, right?
Yeah. He wasn't really playing all that much, but like in shaping the quarterback did the same thing. And it's not even just like for a bad team, like Baylor was a bad team last year. Like Dylan Gabriel, I think, was doing the same thing at OU.
Yeah.
And they were like, we want to go to the other kid. We want to go to there's OU to this too. They wanted to go to Jackson Arnold. And he was just like, okay, yeah, I'll do something else. I'll go somewhere else for a year. So I think there's some of that with grad transfers, but he wanted to play for Kendall Briles, I guess, who had a good game. Kendall had a good game. He did. They have no running game whatsoever. They are a completely one-dimensional team, and they killed Baylor in that one dimension.
What about this is a little inside baseball? Do you follow? You don't, but you don't get like KWTX alerts, right?
No. I used to.
So I still do
at a competitor.
I still do, one, because I'm affiliated with them and I love them. Two, because I just haven't changed it. And so I was getting these alerts and updates, and a few of them were Art Briles related
from the celebration. Yeah, I saw the video they posted.
I was like,
first off, is that push notification worthy?
I mean, and I could be wrong, but I do think I got a push notification. I know that if I opened up Twitter or something else from KWTX, they were talking about Art Briles. Okay, to the point where, and I'll say this, my former employer, I love KWTX. I was like, this is a little much. Yeah. Like, guy's back. I get it. He's not part of the celebration. But I was like, I get it.
Yes,
there was a lot to the point where
it's not going to change anything.
I sent our old friend Darby Brown a message. I said, wow, KWTX going ham on the Briles coverage.
And she's like, wow, I haven't heard someone say go ham in a decade and a half.
But I thought that was a lot. I think it was cool that he was there. But clearly the players were on board too. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong because the player, by the way, what did CAB stand for?
Coach Art Briles.
Oh, okay. I was like Art Briles. I didn't
no, it was just
the C part.
It's like it was just like, but this isn't really like nothing's happening here. You know what I mean? Like we understand he's there. Like there was nothing contentious. There was no controversy with it.
Yeah.
Like why is this? And it was all over the place news wise. I was like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, totally. I thought it was
and the players were doing some CAB stuff on the field, and it's like, obviously, man, like that's their coach.
Yeah.
I get that 100%.
But how about this? You know what's so interesting, and you got to give Baylor the kudos for this. Like, this could have been a disaster of a weekend. Like, and 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, it looked like it might be in a sense where just bad PR. The BS that college institutions and PR people have to deal with, right? Like, but it was the exact opposite. It was, your coach bought a suite for the team.
Yeah.
And he out-coached, according to Cam, Sonny Dykes, and they got a huge win. Yeah. Oh, by the way, they're third straight in the conference, third straight.
Mm-hmm. They went into the first bye week losing 3 in a row. They go into this bye week winning 3 in a row. How about that?
And they should win at West Virginia.
You say that.
We don't have a spread yet, but
they've never done it. They have never won in Morgantown, ever.
Yeah, but how many times they play there?
What, like 6 now?
All right, so 6.
It's something. Their best team, maybe their best team ever in 2014, talent-wise, did not win there. Only lost the regular season.
You'll appreciate.
They scored 63 points there and did not win.
To get an idea of how good those teams were, I was like, I don't think that I'm remembering this correctly. How good the 2014 team was. And if you go back, Mike, just bear with me, all right? For 1 second. I know Mike's got to run out of here, but no, I just want to go through this schedule. Okay. And some of the scores, Cam, as you know, are wild.
Yeah. I can give you some of them if you want.
Yeah, go.
Well, actually, I need the opponent. Give me the opponent.
Okay. SMU, game 1.
45-0. First game ever at McLean Stadium.
Game 2, Northwestern State.
70-6.
Yes. Game 3 at Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. Khalil Mack for Buffalo. 63-21.
Yep. It's this Rain Man. I love it.
I wasn't even at the school at the time, by the way.
Iowa State, game 4.
Oh, 38-3.
49-28.
Damn.
Again, obviously Baylor winning. So then you go to Texas, right?
Yep, 28-7.
28-7.
Yep.
And then you come home, the rivalry with TCU, obviously 61-58.
Mm-hmm.
Now this was, man.
Is it the next week?
October 18th at West Virginia.
41-27 Nears.
41-27. They were ranked 4th in the country going into that game. They totally shit the bed.
Letdown.
A total letdown.
Yeah.
And West Virginia wasn't even ranked at the time.
Yeah,
and then you beat Kansas 60-14.
Yep.
Then
Homecoming.
you at Oklahoma. You won at Texas.
Oh yeah.
Now you go to win at Oklahoma in front of 85,000 people. 48-14.
14 all at halftime.
Then Oklahoma State. 49-28. Okay. Then Texas Tech. Now this was a scary one.
This was a weird one. They won it. The RG3 year they beat him was 66-42. That's not this one.
48-46.
Yeah, they missed a 2-point conversion.
So they won. And then last game of the season.
Patrick Mahomes.
Last game of the season. This is awesome. Kansas State ranked 9th in the country. Baylor 6th. This is College Game Day is there. Baylor wins 38-27. So now they're in prime position to get into the playoff, but they didn't get in.
But thank you to Bob Bowlesby. Completely messed that thing up.
Why did Bob Bowlesby? Because he didn't have a conference championship.
Did not have a conference championship and didn't have a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So just gave both teams a trophy. Baylor and TCU. If only we knew, like maybe if they just matched up against each other, we could see which one was better and deserved the championship.
But you did lose the Cotton Bowl.
Yes.
To 8th ranked Michigan State.
But in that, on like the stage there, Art and Phil Bennett, the DC, were just ripping Bob Bowlesby. And Derek Smith, who's one of the nicest guys ever, is like doing the presentation. It's like picked up on his microphone. They're like yelling up and down Bob Bowlesby because there was like momentum going into that week of like Baylor should be, if they were the conference champion, they'd be in the playoff. But they're going to split it.
When did they give him the trophy? After the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. TCU beat Iowa State 55-3 earlier that day. So they had already won a share. They had announced it that week that it was going to be a share of it.
Man.
It's just horse shit, man.
It's not Brett. That now, hey, you can
I saw Brett.
You can say
talked to Brett
I told you he was going to
game.
be there. You can say loud and proud, this is not Bob Bowlesby's Big 12 anymore.
Well, he put a seed in bringing some of these new teams.
It is Brett Yormarks. All right. Pete Sousa Show tomorrow. Cam Stewart actually precedes it. 11 a.m. Central Time. Mike Hamilton. I love Mike. See you guys tomorrow.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down to afterwards, was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning. So we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been, no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And you know we always family, no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserving, man.
Which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.